Welcome everybody to Enter the Bunker. Thank you so much for joining us as we launch you into thriving here at Enter the Bunker. We are all about building bricks here at the bunker because it takes many building bricks to build a bunker, and the building bricks that we work on are your personal building bricks in life. Whether it's about creativity, fairness, hope, and all these things, they all help you to thrive in everyday life, and that is what we do here. My name is Jonathan Bahai. I am the co-host of Enter the Bunker and also the owner of the 64,000 square foot nuclear bunker, which you have just entered, and very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm Brandon Niles. I'm a part-time host, I guess, here at Enter the Bunker. I'm just hoping to learn as much about these building bricks as everybody else is. I'm just excited to improve myself. And this week we've been talking about a building brick that's actually very important, which is fairness. And I just caught a glimpse at what our background is.
Yeah, terrifying.
I don't know why that would be tied to fairness. Maybe we'll find out later. So a common saying that we normally hear is, "Too bad life is fair." Now, is this a reasonable mindset to have?
Too bad life isn't fair?
Yeah.
I think so.
Why?
Simply because life isn't necessarily fair all the time, but we have a sense of fairness. Mm-hmm. So because we have a sense of fairness, and when things aren't fair, we feel incensed, we feel angry, we feel frustrated. And so these are the things that tend to trip us up in life, right? But that's part of the growth process too, right? For us to be able to handle situations that aren't fair. And since we're talking today about how animals versus humans is in the sense of fairness, the fact that animals have this natural order to the way that they have fairness built into their systems. Mm-hmm. Whereas people, we have that sense of fairness too, but we also have freedom of choice to not follow it.
That's right. So you think that we have more freedom of choice than animals?
Oh yeah, well, that's what we do as humans. We have free choice, whereas animals don't.
Right. You don't think there's any animal that has free choice? I don't know personally, that's why I'm asking.
So I guess it comes down to what your definition of freedom of choice is, right? I mean, like, they have behaviorisms. They have certain things that they follow instinctually. Right. However, as far as like choice goes, the ability to be able to go beyond what you're told to do essentially in your systems, like in being able to survive and being able to handle the ecosystem you're in and just respond to everything around you. Right. It's different when you have a choice in doing that. As a matter of fact, physiologically, humans have the ability, because what happens with animals is that they just respond according to their nervous systems for, like, if there's fight or flight and this types of things. Humans actually have the ability to override those systems in their body. So if you're in a state of panic, what's going to happen is your nervous system is going to kick in, and it's going to start, the amygdala is going to go into override. It's going to start sending all these responses to your body. You're going to start getting all kinds of things happening. But you have the ability to have the choice to say, you know what, I'm going to calm myself down. And you could actually be able to regulate those functions of your body. That's something animals can't do. Animals will just go at it and they will respond to it. But then once they do, they also don't have they don't necessarily have a memory of it. Right. Like they'll expend the energy that happens, and then it's gone.
Right.
Right.
So you said animals have like an instinctiveness. Do you think fairness is an instinct?
I don't think well, yeah, you know what? I think fairness is almost like a sense of being able to see an order to the way things are. Right. You know what I mean? Like, sort of like recognizing patterns. Mm-hmm. You know, and when we look at animals, we see that they have lots of behaviorisms that have a sense that look like fairness. Right. Right. And it's because there is like I said, there's systems and there's orders to the way that they operate. But I think that their fairness, the fairness that they have is more a matter of an instinctual hierarchy versus real fairness in the sense of how we interpret it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we go back to the whole life isn't fair, is there a balance in life if we have to sometimes think that life isn't fair? Because I mean, fair is all about balance, right?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
You would think so. Yeah. Well, actually, there's a quote
Right.
that actually touches on that.
Oh.
So the quote today, actually, that we have that actually touches on what you just mentioned is, there is a balance in life, but not fairness.
Ooh.
So there's your answer, as a matter of fact. We're getting it straight from Shirky Hazard?
Shirley
Shirley?
Hazard.
That is not an H, that's a K.
I know. I write really fast sometimes.
Okay. Shirley Hazard, Australian author of The Transit of Venus. Wow.
Right. But I mean, if you think about it though, if life isn't fair, where's the balance?
I think that it comes back to how the sense of fairness and how we feel in terms of things that happen to us in life. If you feel like you're being treated fairly, then you go into a certain sense of harmony with it. You will start to move forward with it, and you feel you don't feel. You feel like what you're doing is right, or where you are is right, and the way you're being treated is right.
Right.
When there's a sense of unfairness, though, it makes you feel like you're either being denied something, or this isn't the way things should be going, and your whole sense of the way things should be happening isn't happening the way they isn't right, and it isn't fair.
Right.
So, and I think that it comes back to what we talked about the other day, which was the needs, right?
Yeah.
And the needs that people have. And fairness, I think, is highly attached to the idea of everybody's needs being met.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
So I think that's really where it is. And in terms of the balance, it's almost esoteric, like the way that we handle fairness and what's fair and what's not fair throughout life helps us to be able to grow as people.
Right.
So we want to bring more fairness to the world. It means helping more people's needs being met. Mm-hmm. Right?
Destiny says something really cool too. She says, well, it's like the equality version of fairness. It's not always fair, but it's balanced and equal.
Right.
So I think that kind of ties into what you're saying. And speaking of balance and equal, this week we have a little challenge for everybody. And what we're asking is just not keep score this week. Don't keep track of what the other person is doing. Also, maybe try something that they do, because it'll just help you appreciate what they do that much more. So let us know how that's going, and we'll check in a little later on. So generally people are very quick to keep score. Like, oh, how come they did this, or how come like I'm not doing that type of thing, right? So if that kind of goes against what we're doing for our challenge, but it also puts it in perspective, I find.
How so?
Well, like, yes, keeping score is fair, but I find if you focus on that too much, it's almost like you're hyper-focused. You're not focused on what's fair and what makes everything better.
Right.
It's more of like, oh, well, I'm doing this and you're not doing that.
Right.
You're doing this, I'm not doing that, right? Like it works and it doesn't, I find, in a way.
Well, what happens is you get into a locked state, and then something has to give, right? Mm-hmm. One has to move or the other has to move, and that's where other elements, not necessarily of fairness, but forgiveness or other elements of grace may then take over, and then at that point we could have some progress.
That's right.
But the truth is that the idea of, okay, everything has to be just perfect, otherwise we're not going to move, nothing happens, and then nothing good happens from that. So.
Right. I think it also puts into perspective too that this one building brick isn't going to build a bunker on its own.
That's right.
You need all these other building bricks to help make everything flow and be strong.
Exactly.
So kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, are animals more fair than humans, do you think?
I think animals have, like I said, I think that our sense of how we see fairness, I think that when it comes to animals, they are able to execute on fairness much more easily because they don't have freedom of choice.
Right.
So because of that, they tend to be more efficient at fairness than people are.
Right.
In some circumstances. I mean, there's maybe societies out there that we probably don't know or we don't see very often, especially on social media, that essentially do act in a very fair sense, and they're very harmonious, and it's all working because they've worked that out.
Right.
But when you get into situations where people are from different backgrounds, of socioeconomic differences and all this, where there's greater diversity, it's more difficult to find where the fairness medium is because everybody has a different sense of where what fairness looks like.
Right.
But it's possible. Here's the thing, though: if you can have more diverse group, like if you have more diversity and be able to have discovery of the fairness within that diversity, you have something that's much, much stronger than something that's just homogenous of like everybody is in the same group and everybody has the same idea, right? Because then there's no challenge.
That's right.
But if there's a diverse group that's able to be able to discover the fairness amongst themselves, then everything about them builds up and builds up. All the other building bricks come to effect, and then the next thing you know, like everybody's much stronger.
Right. So when you think of an animal that's fair, and you can let us know too, and we'll come back to it later, but what's an animal you think exemplifies fairness the most?
Vampire bat?
Vampire bat. Well, believe it or not, that is one of the animals we have on here. And it's actually really cool how they show fairness, and it's to avoid mass starvation. They'll go out and feed, gather food, but sometimes they don't gather enough food. So they have it's like a buddy system. Whereas if they don't gather enough food, their buddy will, in a gross way, regurgitate blood. So gross. Will regurgitate blood to feed that bat. But then that bat also, later on down the road, if the one who gave the food doesn't have a good night of harvest, the other bat has to help him out. Okay. So it's a way of keeping score, but also being fair.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that was really cool. But also another animal that's really cool, Capuchin monkeys. So you watch the movies, it's like the black and white monkey you see on somebody's shoulder. Yeah. That type of monkey. They have a really interesting way of being fair, and is if they notice another monkey is getting something or more of a treat, we'll say, for doing less work, they will actually not do that work. In a way of strike. Right. But is that fair to everybody else though, if they just stop doing the work?
Well, what's happening there is that they're responding to the stick and the carrot. So in that case, if they ended up feeling like they got the stick where somebody else was getting the carrot, that just turns off their interest in being able to want to do whatever it is that whatever the experiment was calling for them to do. So experiments like this that happen on animals, it's really interesting how they actually have challenges with trying to use these motivators to get them to do certain activities, and things like fairness will kick in, like the behaviors that kick in that don't respond to somebody else getting more than them and things like that. I think that it's interesting that scientists try to have these hypotheses about the way things are, and they set these experiments, but then they find, wait a minute, I can't get them to do what I want them to do with these sort of things. I think that the keeping score and the way that they do that, it's almost like when you think about it from a survival perspective, if there's somebody you're interacting with, and just think about the fact that if you're working with somebody and you've seen somebody rip somebody else off, do you want to have a transaction with that person? No, right? Because you're just like, wait a minute, that guy's not going to be that guy's not fair with that guy. He's not going to be fair with me. So the monkey's acting the same way. He's seeing that. He's just like, you know what? If that's the way it's going to be, I'm not going to have it. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Someone said huskies, the pack mentality.
Yeah.
Could be another animal that shows a lot of fairness. Abigail also says, I think there's a lot of unfairness towards animals. And how do we fix that?
Unfairness towards animals, such as?
Well, I mean, kind of what you mentioned earlier, doing studies on animals. Now, these studies we're talking about could be a little more not as impactful. but there is studies that happen to animals, and like, I mean, poaching too.
Oh,
is terrible, right? So like, I think there is a lot of unfairness towards animals, but I mean, to fix that as people, that's kind of like a whole society thing. One person isn't going to fix that.
So what does fairness towards animals look like then? Like, imagine a world where we're fair to animals. What do you think that looks like?
That's a good question. Fairness towards animals. I think fairness towards animals could be like not ruining their habitats. So like, if you look locally, for example, Truro is growing out.
Yes.
And we're seeing like a mass population of deer in Truro.
Yes.
Like mass. You have a better chance of running into a deer in town than you are outside.
You drive down the street, you'll actually see more deers than you see people.
That's right. But a lot of people don't understand that's because we're taking away their home.
Yes.
We're growing out instead of upwards, right?
Right.
So I think that's one way we can actually improve our fairness on animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
To have consideration then for their habitat.
That's right.
Consideration is another brick.
That's right.
Yeah.
More bricks on the bunker. Stewie says, I think symbolic relationship breeds fairness in the natural world, but it's due to the motivation and self-preservation.
It's due to the motivation and self-preservation. Yeah, and I think, read that again.
I think symbolic relationships breeds fairness.
Symbiotic.
I apologize. Symbiotic. Words are hard. I think symbiotic relationships breeds fairness in a natural world, but it's due to the motivation and self-preservation. I apologize, Stewie.
Right. Okay. Now it makes more sense. Now I know what to think of that. Okay.
I'm just trying to make you think harder.
So yeah, symbiotic relationships do tend to. They're a good example of actually a very fair relationship.
Right.
Right. And I think that a lot of people like to think of fairness in that very simple sense, especially like when it comes to even like relationships between men and women, right? It'll be like, how symbiotic is this? How much are you doing? How much am I doing? And all this kind of stuff, right? So I think that a lot of people like the simpleness of symbiosis as being fairness. And in nature, that's a lot of what happens.
Right.
But again, there isn't always fairness in nature either.
That's right.
I mean, like there's, for example, the praying mantis, after they mate, the woman will eat the man's head off. So how's that fair?
That's true. Destiny says the way they get processed for food can be changed too.
Yeah.
So I have seen photos of like, you just see like photos of farms where like pigs are about to be slaughtered, but it's not like a few pigs in a pen. It's like a mass group of pigs, right? And I personally find it very inhumane.
Yeah, if you've seen any kind of videos of how our food chain works, you'll immediately see that it's quite grotesque, the whole process, and it's completely disassociated from what we eventually see in front of us, right?
Right.
I think that there's definitely a lot of room for improvement on that, but at the end of the day, it's humanity's own systems that have created these situations by making it so that the environment, if the environment makes it so that something like that can grow, it will grow, right?
Right.
But if the environment makes it so that it's not conducive, not profitable, not going to make you, not going to do well, then it's going to stop, right? And we've seen this where we've had systemic changes to the ways we reduce, recycle, reuse, and things like that have made massive changes in terms of being able to make things better in terms of our waste management, for example. But when it comes to animals, there's been very little effort in terms of the mass cycle, like the mass food chain and how we process it in the distribution system. But if there was systemic changes to the profitability of it or to what has to happen or even how people consume it, and at the end, people like to say, it's all, it's what you buy that's your vote on what you accept, then that's where I think people can exercise their fairness. They can be able to have a vote.
That's right. Destiny also says humans are the world's worst disease in so many ways. Was the world perhaps more fair before us?
Humans are the worst disease? What?
That's what Destiny says.
Humans are the world's worst disease in so many ways. Okay. What was the world perhaps more fair before us? Before humans, we had dinosaurs.
We had dinosaurs.
They were pretty vicious.
Comet kind of took care of them, but
yeah. I don't think, I mean, truthfully, what we see in terms of our impact on the world, I think, has only been seen in the last 100 years.
Right.
And prior to that, we weren't that impactful, right? But I think that, again, this comes back to systems and the way that they're encouraged or whether they encourage or discourage certain things to happen.
Right.
And I think that as we evolve so that we become more compassionate, more loving, more caring, more fair,
Right.
then we're going to see systems that reflect that rather than systems that are going to encourage nothing but profiteering at all costs, for example, which is probably what a lot of systems we see today encourage.
Right. So before we wrap up, yesterday we had talked about the 3 ideas of fairness: deservedness, equal, and need.
Right.
When it comes to fairness towards animals, which of those ideas do you think best applies to them?
Deservedness, well, the monkey seems like they agree with deservedness, right? Equality, the vampire bat seems to agree with equality.
Yep.
Right? Need.
And need too, though.
And need, yeah. Because they're going to starve if they don't.
That's right. Yeah. So I think it all applies. To me, the 3 ideas is situational.
Right.
So they apply in different ways. Like yesterday, with the whole feed the infant the same amount as a teenager.
Right.
Need is going to take precedence over equal.
Right.
So I think they're all situational in that point. But we got to wrap up. I'm getting the wave and the red light and the flashing lights. We got to wrap up. We've been talking too much. But Friday, I'm all messed up today. Friday, we're doing Fun Friday. And we're going to be testing fairness a little bit, seeing what's fair and how power can influence fair.
How power can influence fair.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yep.
This is going to be a disaster.
That's right. So if you want to check that out, subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell. That way you'll get notified when we go live on Friday. Also, we'll be posting lots of stuff leading up to it on Instagram at Enter the Bunker. If you want to check that out, please do that as well. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Brandon Niles. Jonathan Bahai.
Jonathan Bahai.
Stay fair.
Have a great day, everybody.